What if the reason your wealth keeps disappearing isn't about what you earn or even what you spend, but about where your home is quietly asking you to pay attention? Not in loud, obvious ways, but in how your money behaves after it enters your space. Does it stay? Does it circulate? Or does it vanish just as quickly as it came, like water slipping through a crack you never saw? It's not how much money you have. It's whether your home knows where to keep it. That's the question we'll be exploring today. Not through superstition, not through oversimplified tricks, but through something more intimate, the symbolic, energetic, and deeply practical relationship between your home and your prosperity. Because the truth is, your home is not just shelter, it's a living field. It breathes with you. It holds memory. It holds rhythm. It holds energy. And if that energy is scattered, if there is no clear place within it to contain and protect financial intention, then no matter how hard you work, wealth will have nowhere to rest. In Feng Shui, we often say, the home is the outer body. Just as the lungs breathe for your body, the windows breathe for your home. Just as your heart center regulates your inner flow, your kitchen regulates abundance. And just as your nervous system stores stress or ease depending on how you live, so too does your home record your emotional and energetic patterns. We see this reflected not just in where you place things, but in why. Why do some people tuck cash under the mattress? Why do others lock it away in a dusty cabinet? Why is it that the wealthiest households often have designated safes, but the spiritually attuned homes often do too? Because both groups, regardless of belief, understand this one truth. If money is not given a space of honor, it becomes a source of stress. If it is left out, exposed, or scattered, symbolically or literally, it feels unsafe. And when money feels unsafe in your field, it doesn't stay. That's not mysticism, that's pattern. Buddhism reminds us the body is a vessel. It is both the container and the instrument of karma. Similarly, Feng Shui sees the house as the vessel of your earthly journey. And the placement of wealth, of anything representing value, is not just a design choice, it's a karmic decision. So let me ask you, where does your home store its wealth? Do you have a clear place where you keep cash, financial documents, precious items? Or is it all scattered, some in drawers, some under socks, some on the kitchen counter, some forgotten in purses or bags? And even if you do have a safe, is it respected? Or is it just another box in a cluttered room? Today's video is going to explore this with depth, clarity, and simplicity. We'll look at the one space in your home that, when treated with the right care, can change the way money moves in your life. Not just in bank statements, but in how it feels, in how it stays, in how it shows up when you need it, and how it's no longer something to chase, but something that begins to land gently again and again. We'll talk about why certain parts of your home create energetic leaks, why putting a safe near the bathroom might be quietly draining your fortune, why storing wealth in the kitchen, even in a locked cabinet, might invite volatility, and why certain unseen placements, like the direction your safe faces or whether it's elevated off the floor, can signal to your subconscious either clarity or collapse. We'll also look at what actually makes a wealth space come alive, because it's not enough to just buy a metal box and toss in some money. That's storage, not stewardship. You'll learn how to prepare your safe like a ritual, quietly, mindfully, with one or two symbolic objects that don't just look pretty, but carry weight. An old coin from your grandfather, a red envelope with a single bill, a piece of sandalwood or a shell, or even a handwritten note with a single word: trust. Because wealth isn't just money, it's how you hold what matters. And that is what this video is really about. Not manifesting, not wishing, not over-ritualizing something that should stay simple, but returning to this truth: what you hold with care begins to stay. If you have ever felt like your finances were chaotic despite your best efforts, what if that wasn't your fault? What if it was just a missing space, a missing anchor, a missing energetic signal that says to the universe and to your own subconscious, I'm ready to protect what supports me? That is the power of what we'll uncover today. So if you've ever longed for a clearer relationship with wealth, not one based on shame or pressure, but on grounded wisdom and sacred placement, This video is for you. And if this opening already offers you a new way to think about your space, I kindly invite you to support the journey. Before we dive deeper, would you help me by liking this video, sharing it with someone who may benefit, and subscribing to this channel? New Day Mindfulness. Each small gesture helps me move closer to 1,000 subscribers, and more importantly, helps grow a quiet, wise community committed to understanding life, not through hype, but through harmony. So let's begin. Let's reimagine what your home could become. Not just a place to sleep or eat or survive, but a living field that holds and protects the energy of wealth, because it finally knows where to keep it. Shall we? Section 1, the safe isn't just for security. It's a statement. We often think of a safe as a security feature, something to protect valuables, to keep important documents locked away, or to deter theft. But from the perspective of energetic design, both in Feng Shui and in Buddhist symbolism, a safe is not just a container for physical possessions. It is a symbolic mirror for how we treat the concept of worth. And more subtly, it reflects how we relate to the question, am I willing to protect what truly sustains me? The safe, when viewed properly, is not a vault. It is a vow, not a place where we hide, but a place where we honor. In the same way that a meditation cushion doesn't give you insight, but provides the stability from which insight can arise, the safe does not create wealth, but it does signal that you are ready to hold it. In Feng Shui, the safe belongs to the metal element. Metal governs containment, structure, refinement, and value. But a safe sitting alone without context is inert. It gains vibrancy when it rests in a supporting environment, particularly one that feeds its energy rather than drains it. Earth supports metal. Wood governs the southeast sector of most homes, which in classical Feng Shui corresponds to wealth, prosperity, and accumulation. So when a metal object, like a safe, sits upon earth and is placed within a wood-aligned area, the interaction among these elements becomes nourishing rather than conflicting. Energy can flow, stabilize, and concentrate rather than scatter or degrade. That's why placement matters. A safe in the wrong area, say near a stove, fire element, or beside a toilet, water and drainage, can lead to confusion, volatility, or stagnation in financial matters. It's not superstition, it's symbolic geometry. Each room in your home carries a kind of dialogue, and where you place a sacred object like a safe either enhances that conversation or disrupts it. Let's speak about height. In both Buddhist monasteries and traditional homes across Asia, sacred objects are never placed directly on the ground. Why? Because the ground, though supportive, is heavy with yin. It pulls, it drags, it grounds, but if you're not careful, it also dampens. This is why altars are elevated, why offerings are raised, why documents are stored off the floor. Your safe should follow the same logic. Lift it slightly, at least 2 to 4 inches, from the floor using a low wood shelf or a ceramic pedestal. This small elevation allows the safe's chi to breathe. It prevents the downward tug of energy that makes wealth feel heavier than it needs to. Also consider what the safe faces. If it's directly across from a bathroom, you may unconsciously be placing your wealth in a cycle of loss and release. If it faces a mirror, your prosperity could be in a state of constant duplication, but never retention, a reflection without substance. If it's wedged beside your stove or microwave, you may unknowingly be burning through your funds with a kind of habitual urgency. In these cases, even when your earnings rise, your ability to keep or grow them may remain limited. Now let me take you into the life of someone who lived through this without realizing it. In Melbourne, there's a woman, let's call her Alina, who ran a small but successful consultancy. Her client list was stable, her income was predictable, and yet, month after month, she struggled to feel secure. Money came in, but it vanished. There was no major crisis, no unexpected debt, just a persistent sense that nothing ever truly settled. When we spoke, I asked her about her storage habits, not her budget, not her accounts, but her home. Where do you keep what's valuable to you? I asked. She shrugged. We have a safe, but I barely use it. It's under the staircase behind some luggage. We walked through her space. The safe was low, pressed against the cool concrete, surrounded by clutter. near an area of water leakage. It hadn't been cleaned in years. I suggested a shift, just one. We moved the safe into her home office, an east-facing corner with good light and wood paneling. We placed it on a short walnut shelf, lined it with a red cloth, and left it empty for a few days. I told her, let the space reset, don't rush to fill it, let the safe become a clear field again. Then she slowly reintroduced her most meaningful items: a birth certificate, a contract, a single envelope of cash, a gold ring her mother had passed down. Nothing more. 3 months later, she emailed me. It's strange, she wrote. Nothing huge has changed, but I feel calmer. I know exactly what's coming in and what's going out. For the first time, I feel like money listens to me. That is the essence of Feng Shui, not to manipulate energy, but to make it feel heard. Not to control wealth, but to invite it into coherence. Buddhism teaches that the Bodhi tree did not give the Buddha enlightenment. It simply provided a place still enough for his awakening to occur. In the same way, your safe is not your answer, but it may be the first time you give yourself permission to stay still long enough for the answer to arrive. Let's talk ritual. When you place something inside your safe, don't toss it. Place it with both hands. Pause. Say a short phrase, if only to yourself. I protect what protects me. This is mine to steward, not to fear. Let this be held with clarity. These aren't incantations. They are directional arrows. They tell your subconscious, this act matters. Don't let your safe become a junk drawer. Don't stuff it with things you no longer value. Every item you place inside should either represent financial clarity, protection, or peace. Even if it's just a single document or a small bill. Let it be clean, intentional, and well-positioned. And remember, it's not about the amount. It's about the field. You don't need thousands of dollars to activate the energy of wealth in your home. You need a corner of your life that says, I'm ready to care, I'm ready to keep, I'm ready to contain what I used to chase. Because when you create that kind of stillness, when you elevate the safe, clean the space, honor the placement, and activate the field, not only does money begin to stay, but your relationship to it begins to soften. And from that softness comes precision. And from that precision comes flow. So ask yourself, is your wealth being hidden or honored? Is it buried under fear or elevated in trust? Is your safe a box of metal or a mirror of readiness? And if you feel called to begin again, to make even a quiet shift, I invite you to start there. Lift the safe, clear the space. Let wealth know it finally has somewhere to rest. Section 2. What makes a safe energetically alive? Not all safes are created equal, at least not energetically. The dimensions might be similar, the locks equally secure, the metal just as solid, but one safe may feel empty and dormant, while another hums with coherence and purpose. This difference doesn't come from brand names or biometric features. It comes from care, from clarity, and from the quiet choices we make about what enters that space and how. Because while a safe can secure physical items, its energetic purpose is far deeper. In both Feng Shui and Buddhist understanding, the vibrational quality of a space determines how well it holds intention. A bowl is only useful because of its emptiness. A room becomes a sanctuary not from its walls, but from the energy it is prepared to receive. And a safe becomes truly alive when it no longer stores just things, but stories, symbols, and stillness. That aliveness isn't mystical, it's architectural, it's psychological, it's practical. It's the difference between keeping and honoring. So let's speak plainly. What makes a safe alive? Start with this: cleanliness. Not just physical, but symbolic. Dust in Feng Shui represents stagnation. It is the residue of what once moved but now rests without clarity. When a safe is covered in dust, when its hinges are sticky or its inside cluttered with half-folded papers, crumpled notes, or yellowing receipts, it stops serving its function. You may not see it every day, but your body remembers where your wealth lives. If that place is heavy, blocked, or unkempt, then your nervous system begins to file wealth under burden rather than blessing. So clean your safe seasonally, not obsessively, just with intention. Wipe the inner walls with a dry cloth. Clean the outside with wood polish or metal safe spray. Air it out for a day with the door open. Let the chi refresh. Next, dress the space. You wouldn't host a guest of honor on a bare table. Nor would you place a sacred text on a dusty shelf. So why place your money, your contracts, your jewels, your documentation of value on cold steel? Line the base of your safe with something warm and symbolic. A red cloth is traditional, not for color's sake alone, but because red in 5-element theory represents fire, activation, dignity, forward motion. When red meets metal, you create a field of active containment. You may also use a golden cloth or even a deep earthy brown, something that grounds without dulling. The fabric needn't be ornate. It simply needs to be clean, intentional, and unfrayed. On top of this cloth, consider placing a piece of gold foil, an offering tray, or a small box of incense. The idea isn't to create a shrine, but to add a visual cue that this space is not neutral. It is energized, it is prepared, it is ready to support whatever you place inside. And what should you place inside? Not much, and not randomly. A safe that's too full becomes heavy, overstuffed, breathless. Just like a closet packed with clothes you never wear, or a pantry filled with expired goods, an overloaded safe begins to accumulate psychic weight. You're not honoring wealth, you're hoarding it. So instead of stuffing your safe with everything you fear losing, choose 1 to 3 objects that anchor intention. This is where the art of symbolic placement comes in. Start with 1, a vintage coin, not because it's expensive, but because it's earned. Something that has passed through hands, through time, through lineage. A piece that reminds you that wealth is generational, cumulative, and infused with memory. That coin might come from your grandfather's jacket pocket, or from a trip that changed your career, or from the first time you felt you truly made it. Wrap that coin in red and place it with your cash or your contracts. Let it sit in the corner of the safe, not buried, but also not flaunted. Let it be the heartbeat of the space. Next, consider an heirloom, a ring, a pendant, a small photograph, or a handwritten letter. Something that connects you to a deeper value than money. Because when you place emotional wealth alongside financial documents, you remind yourself that accumulation without meaning is hollow, and meaning without structure is fleeting. Lastly, choose a single representation of future vision, a crisp note with your name on it, a seed envelope, a folded affirmation, something that doesn't beg or wish, but signals readiness. I'm available to hold what nourishes me. May what enters here stay with dignity and clarity. These aren't superstitions. These are organizational principles for the soul. Now, placement matters too. Don't just toss these items inside. Place them with both hands, in silence or with a quiet phrase. Let the moment matter. It doesn't have to be sacred, but it must be present. When you drop cash into a safe while distracted, you're not anchoring wealth, you're transferring anxiety. But when you place it with breath, when you feel your feet grounded, when you release the money and say even mentally, this is protected, you create a loop between intention and location, between wealth and stillness. This ritual doesn't need to be long. 10 seconds is enough, if you mean it. Let me share with you a story that stayed with me. A retired banker I met in Singapore, let's call him Mr. Lim, once told me he didn't trust banks anymore, even though he spent 4 decades managing them. Not because they're bad, he said, but because I forgot what real money felt like. He kept his wealth distributed across investments. But one day, after sorting through his late mother's belongings, he found a coin she'd once kept on her altar, a silver dollar, polished from years of touch. He wrapped it in red cloth, placed it in an envelope, and stored it inside his personal safe. It's not the coin, he told me. It's the feeling, the quiet. Since then, my financial decisions feel more grounded. I move slower, but I lose less. That is what it means for a safe to be energetically alive. Not just locked, not just hidden, but felt, tended, aligned. And that alignment doesn't need praise. No one needs to see it. No one even needs to know. In fact, the less attention from others, the stronger the field becomes. In Buddhist teaching, the strongest actions are those done without the need for recognition. That's how you build spiritual muscle, quietly, consistently, with care. So if you're ready to transform your safe from a coal box to a living field, begin here. Clean it, dress it, place with purpose, limit your objects. Choose one symbolic item of the past. Choose one symbol of value. Choose one anchor of what's coming. And then, each time you open the door, pause, even for a breath, even for a second. Let the space reflect, not panic, but poise, not craving, but capacity. Because when your safe becomes alive, your wealth begins to rest. And when your wealth rests, your energy no longer chases. It listens, it roots, and it returns. Section 3, the myth of saving too much. There is a subtle line between stewardship and stagnation. In the world of finance, saving is praised, and rightly so. Discipline, restraint, planning for the unknown, these are virtues. But when saving becomes hoarding, when the instinct to protect crosses over into an unwillingness to move, to share, to let energy breathe, that which was once protective becomes obstructive. Buddhist philosophy has long warned against clinging to identity, to pleasure, to success, and yes, even to money. Clinging is not the same as holding. One comes from fear, the other from clarity. In Feng Shui, money is often compared to water, and not just metaphorically. In many Asian households, flowing fountains or water features are placed near wealth areas of the home, not to generate magic, but to remind the household. Movement is abundance. When water is allowed to circulate, it nourishes. When it is blocked, it stagnates, becomes murky, and eventually breeds imbalance. Cash behaves the same way. It needs to move, to be acknowledged, to be used with rhythm. A safe filled with old bills that haven't seen the light of day in years is not holding wealth, it's storing resistance. And resistance is heavy. Let's break this down with a Buddhist lens. The act of saving in itself is neutral. But when done compulsively or fearfully, it carries karmic weight. Think of karma not as punishment or reward, but as momentum, a cause leading to an effect. If the cause of your saving is anxiety, that you might not have enough, that you must keep all you get, then what energy do you expect to arise from that cause? Peace? Hardly. Accumulation without generosity or usage becomes a form of spiritual constipation. You are holding what should be circulating. You are freezing what should be fluid. One of the classical teachings in the Nikaya text speaks of the layperson's ideal relationship to wealth. Earn righteously, use wisely, save mindfully, and share generously. Each part is essential, but in the modern world, we've been conditioned to worship the third step, saving, while often neglecting the other three. But a wheel cannot turn if only one spoke is active. There must be balance. Now let's ground this in the home, in the material. If you're storing money in your safe, or in drawers, or hidden envelopes throughout the house, when was the last time you checked it, touched it, rotated the notes, or even breathed into that space? If cash sits untouched for too long, the chi around it becomes stale. Just like food left too long in the fridge or laundry left damp and forgotten, it begins to degrade energetically, even if it looks fine. This isn't about superstition, it's about psychological memory. When you hide money from yourself, you teach your subconscious that money is dangerous or shameful or too sacred to touch. But what if instead you treated it like a garden? In a garden, some plants bloom early, others late. Some need trimming, others need space. But all need movement, sunlight, water, attention. Saving money doesn't mean locking it in darkness. It means giving it structure, but also breath. This brings us to the first practical suggestion. Cycle your cash. At the beginning of each month or lunar cycle, if you follow traditional rhythms, remove the cash from your safe gently. Spread it out. Wipe the inside of your safe with a clean cloth. Replace old bills with crisp ones if possible. Fold torn notes. Stack by denomination. Smell the paper. Feel the weight. This is not obsession. This is orientation. You're reminding your field, This is mine. I care for it. I'm not afraid of it. If the bills feel tired, if the edges are worn or the ink faded, exchange them. Not because the currency lacks value, but because the energetic imprint is tired. Think of it like keeping spoiled food in your pantry. Technically edible, but energetically depleting. Second suggestion, use a percentage of what you store. There's an ancient practice among certain Japanese business families. No matter how large or small the amount of savings, 10% is always in motion. Some months it goes to community. Other months, to tools, to learning, to subtle upgrades. Why be with some? Because they understand that money, like energy, becomes sterile when locked too tightly. You don't need to spend recklessly, but you do need to signal to your subconscious and to the field around you that you trust the flow. That what comes out will return. That letting go is not the same as losing. Let me share a story that illustrates this perfectly. A ceramic artist named Kira, based in the Pacific Northwest, had a thriving online shop. Her commissions were steady, her wait list long, but for almost 2 years, her income remained flat. Every piece she made sold, but her bank account hovered, never quite rising. She felt trapped. When we spoke, I asked her how she managed her earnings. "I put everything I make in a drawer," she said. "All the cash goes there. I don't trust banks. I don't spend unless I have to." I asked her to show me the drawer. It was in the darkest corner of her studio, old, wooden, musty. The cash was wrapped in tissue, some of it faded. There were coins, crumpled notes, even a check from a year ago. I gently suggested a shift. Keep 80% in the drawer if that feels safe, but take 20% just for a month and use it to expand. She hesitated. Expand how? Classes, tools, gifting, anything that moves your energy forward. She signed up for a glazing workshop, bought herself a new potter's wheel, sent a surprise bonus mug to 3 of her most loyal customers. 3 months later, her income doubled. Not from magic, from movement, from belief turned into action. Which brings us to the third and final point. Keep your wealth lean, but intentional. A safe is not a storage unit. It's a tuned instrument. What you place in it should sing with relevance, not groan with forgotten items. Rotate your contents. Remove anything that no longer feels aligned. A check from a closed account. A business card from a venture that never launched. Release it. Place only what serves. Not just materially, but symbolically. A red envelope, a jade piece, a handwritten affirmation, a photo of your grandfather's hands counting coins. These things matter. Not because they're enchanted, but because they keep your story awake. Wealth is not about having more. It's about feeling clear with what you have. And that clarity cannot emerge in clutter, or fear, or hoarding. It comes when you open the drawer, touch the bills, smile softly and say, "This is enough, and more is welcome, but only if it flows." As the Dhammapada says, as irrigators guide water, as fletchers straighten arrows, so the wise shape their mind. In this case, shape your relationship to saving not as a wall, but as a well. Not as a lock, but as a rhythm. And when you do, you'll notice something shift. A lightness, a readiness, a new kind of prosperity, not just in your finances, but in your breath, your relationships, your willingness to receive. So ask yourself, are you protecting your money or imprisoning it? Are you saving for life or from it? Section 4, small mistakes that create big leaks. Small details are often dismissed as insignificant, minor oversights in the larger story of life. But in the language of energy, especially within Buddhist and Feng Shui frameworks, what seems small is often what opens or closes the door to lasting transformation. It is not always the large error, the bankruptcy, the job loss, the forgotten tax filing, that derails prosperity. Sometimes it is where you place a box, or how you program a lock, or who you let stand too close to what you hold sacred. The safe, as we've already explored, is not simply a container of value. It is a metaphorical hearth. It holds not only the documents and dollars you store, but also your beliefs about what is worth protecting and how. Yet most safes, despite being made of steel, carry soft leaks, and not because the lock is broken, but because the intention around them is diluted, misaligned, or unconsciously scattered. Let us begin with the physical. First, the floor. Placing your safe directly on the ground, especially cold tile or cement, is one of the most common energetic errors. In Feng Shui, the floor is where yin gathers. It is dense, downward, receptive. But too much yin creates stagnation. When you place wealth on the floor, you are symbolically rooting your abundance in fear. You are saying, let this stay low, let this stay hidden, let this be hard to reach. Think of how ancient traditions raise altars, food offerings, even the beds of newborns, never directly on the ground, always slightly lifted, not for comfort alone, but to signal dignity. A safe that sits flush to the floor is harder to access, easier to forget, and more likely to accumulate stagnation underneath. Even dust becomes symbolic, clinging to the bottom of your savings, as if to whisper, you've stored this long enough. Now let it breathe. Instead, elevate your safe gently. Use a low wood bench, a ceramic pedestal, or even a small table lined with red cloth. Let the base breathe. Let the energy circulate beneath. That one shift, often overlooked, transforms the message from one of weight to one of reverence. Now let's consider direction. If your safe faces the main entrance of your home or your office, be cautious. You are placing your wealth directly in line with the mouth of Qi, the incoming and outgoing breath of your entire space. Just as you wouldn't sit with your back to the door during a job interview, or face someone you love during an argument while holding a knife, so too should your safe avoid facing the most transient, unfiltered, energetic corridor of your home. Why? Because Qi moves swiftly through the front door. If your safe sits facing it, there is a subtle subconscious cue that wealth energy enters and immediately exits. The moment something arrives, it begins to leave. Over time, this positioning may create patterns of unstable income, impulse spending, or financial opportunities that dissolve before they root. If your architecture offers no alternative, you may correct this with a cloth cover, a screen, or by slightly angling the safe to face away from the direct line of the door. Let wealth stay a moment longer. Let it feel invited. Another frequent mistake is placing the safe beneath or across from a mirror. Mirrors are powerful tools in Feng Shui. They double what they reflect. But when poorly placed, they distort rather than enhance. A mirror above a safe creates energetic instability. It suggests that what is contained can never settle, that what is earned must immediately be seen, duplicated, or judged. It creates a loop where security becomes performance and prosperity becomes image. In Buddhist terms, this touches the heart of the ego illusion. You are not what you possess, and yet the subconscious can begin to associate reflection with worth. We see this in the culture of overexposure, where people post earnings, purchases, or success stories not for joy, but for validation. The mirror reflects not wealth, but uncertainty. As such, if there's a mirror across from or above your safe, consider relocating one of the two. Or, if that's not possible, soften the space with a cloth, a plant, or a curved object that absorbs the visual sharpness. Now let's move into subtler territory: energetic mistakes. One of the most symbolic but overlooked errors is using a weak or predictable passcode. You might ask, what does a numeric code have to do with energy? But from a Buddhist perspective, intention is everything. A passcode is a modern-day mantra. You type it with your fingers. You do it often, and it stands between you and something you consider valuable. If your code is your birthday, your phone number, or something guessed easily, it's not about safety alone. It's about self-trust. You're telling your subconscious, I don't believe anything will threaten this. But that, ironically, invites recklessness. A meaningful passcode, something symbolic, intentional, maybe even affirming, creates a stronger energetic boundary. Something as simple as 848, symbolizing the Noble Eightfold Path, or the Four Noble Truths repeated, might carry more resonance than 1234. Another mistake is sharing access, willingly or carelessly. Who knows the location of your safe? Who else has a key? Have you ever opened it in the presence of someone who doesn't respect it? Feng Shui teaches that Qi leaks through confusion. When multiple people access a field with unclear roles or differing energies, the field destabilizes. And in Buddhism, the boundary between self and other is permeable but precious. Your karma is yours. So is your prosperity. If others have open, casual access to your wealth sanctuary, that field becomes diluted. It's not about secrecy, it's about stewardship. Let's ground this in a simple analogy. Imagine a garden. You tend it, you water it, you grow herbs, vegetables, flowers. You walk through it barefoot every morning. You speak softly, you harvest only what you need. This garden thrives. Now imagine 5 other people walking through it. One wears shoes, one plucks leaves for tea without asking, one smokes while talking loudly, another throws seeds without care. Over time, the garden changes. It becomes less coherent. The intention shifts. The energy loses clarity. Your safe is no different. It's not that others are malicious, but they don't share your story, your vision, your karmic contract with that space. Let your safe be your private field, known, touched, and opened by you, with awareness, with care, with respect. There's a Buddhist phrase I return to often. Not all silence is peace. Sometimes silence is leaking energy. Meaning sometimes we think that because nothing is going wrong, everything is aligned. But energy doesn't only shift through noise or drama, it shifts through drift, through inattention, through subtle compromise. And safes, being still and hidden, often become sites of that unconscious drift. So if you have a safe, pause, revisit it. Where does it sit? What does it face? Is it grounded or is it slumped? Is it dignified or is it cluttered? Who touches it? What does it reflect? What message does it send to you, to your subconscious, to the rhythm of money in your life? These are not paranoid questions. They are devotional ones. They remind us that stewardship is not passive. It is quiet action. It is the slow cultivation of order, placement, and clarity in a world that too often confuses movement with growth. Let your safe be a secret sanctuary, known by you, opened with stillness, protected by your discernment, not to create isolation, but to create coherence. Because when small mistakes become clear, big changes follow naturally. And when you close every leak, even gently, what remains is not just wealth, but peace. Section 5. What to place inside. What we place inside a safe is often approached with practicality. Cash, documents, deeds, passports, insurance policies. These are the items society deems valuable, the things we'd reach for in an emergency. But when we step back into the realm of energetic structure, the safe becomes something more than a box. It becomes a sanctuary, a still point, a subtle altar for the wealth we want not only to preserve, but to grow without fear. The question then is not just what to store, but how and why. In both Buddhist and Feng Shui traditions, there is an ancient understanding that objects are not neutral. They hold stories, they echo intention, they accumulate residue. That residue can elevate a space or slowly cloud it. This is why temples are cleaned daily, why altars are dusted with reverence, and why even a cup of tea is prepared with full attention before being placed on a monk's table. So what happens when we extend that same reverence to our safe? First, we shift the language. The items you add are not charms. This is not a matter of superstition, nor about placing magic bullets in a box and hoping for miracles. The items you add are energy anchors. They are chosen symbols that concentrate your clarity. When placed with presence, they reinforce the kind of chi you want that safe to hold. Not too many, 1 to 3 at most. More than that, and the message becomes cluttered. Less about focus, more about fantasy. So what kinds of objects are appropriate? Let's walk through 5 of the most powerful and what they signal, not just to the safe, but to your own financial consciousness. 1. The gold ingot, memory of wealth across time. Whether real gold or symbolic, such as a small brass bar, a gold-painted stone, or even a golden paper talisman, the ingot represents more than affluence. It symbolizes the echo of value, the idea that wealth, when stored with care, survives generations. In Chinese tradition, the Sai-Si shape, oval with tapered edges, was once used as a standard unit of currency, but its meaning has evolved. Now it stands for preservation, for wealth that is not rushed, and for accumulation without anxiety. When placed inside the safe, the ingot becomes a reminder that wealth doesn't have to shout, it can rest. That which is buried can still be felt. You're not storing urgency, you're anchoring legacy. Practical tip: wrap the ingot in a red cloth before placing it in the safe, especially if your safe sits in the southern area of your home or office. South governs fire and reputation, an ideal match for gold's shine and affirmation. 2. The smooth coin, continuity of financial wisdom. A single vintage coin, ideally one passed down or discovered during a pivotal moment in your life, offers grounding. It is not about the amount, but the message. This has lasted. In Buddhist thinking, the past is never fully behind us. It moves through us. And a coin, weathered and circular, becomes a literal link in that chain. It's the equivalent of carrying your grandfather's hands, your mother's lessons, your first earned dollar. Smooth, worn edges show movement, handled by time, not hoarded in fear. When stored in your safe, such a coin says, "I trust my past. I do not need to discard it to grow forward." Feng Shui application. Place this coin toward the southeast side of the safe if possible. This sector governs wealth growth. The union of aged wisdom and future momentum becomes potent here. 3. White shed snake skin, symbol of breakthrough and renewal. Rare and best sourced ethically, collected from naturally shed skins, a piece of white snake skin may seem odd to the modern mind, but in ancient traditions, it is sacred. The snake is one of the few animals that entirely releases its old body in order to grow. The white skin left behind becomes not death, but evidence of transformation. In Buddhism, this resonates with the idea of anicca, impermanence. To grow is to shed. Placed in the safe, this fragment becomes a vow. I am no longer who I was. I welcome what I have never yet held. It signals breakthrough, capacity, and reverence for discomfort. Wealth, after all, rarely comes without metamorphosis. Practical advice: place the skin in a small, sealed cloth bag and tuck it toward the rear of the safe. Let it hold the backspace of your intention. Quiet, resilient, unseen but powerful. Or seashell or pearl shard. Yin balance and calm accumulation. We often treat wealth as fire, fast, competitive, action-driven. But true abundance is yin in nature. It gathers quietly like tide pools forming under a full moon. A shell, smooth and curved, or a sliver of pearl, reflects this softness. In many cultures, shells symbolize the divine feminine, the womb of all creation and prosperity that doesn't require performance. They remind you, you do not need to chase, you only need to receive. When placed in a safe, especially alongside harder, yang-dominant items like metal or currency, the shell harmonizes. It cools the energy. It slows the heartbeat of wealth. The goal is not less ambition, but more receptivity. Placement note: ideal for western northwest corners of the safe. These sectors balance metal and soft earth, mirroring the shell's origin. 5. Sandalwood chip or agarwood flake. Stabilization and scented grounding. If you've ever walked into a monastery or shrine in Southeast Asia, you've smelled it before. The deep medicinal sweetness of sandalwood or agarwood. These woods are more than fragrant. So they are sacred materials. In Buddhist temples, they're used to purify space, to call in clarity, and to mark transition. One chip placed in the corner of your safe brings that memory in. But more than smell, sandalwood stabilizes. Its slow burn, its earthy note, tells your nervous system, we are not in danger, we are in devotion. In a safe, it reminds you that wealth is not adrenaline, it is resonance. Real story: a businessman in Kuala Lumpur once shared that after adding a piece of sandalwood to his safe, wrapped in silk and placed near his investment ledgers, he began to feel more settled when making decisions. It's the first time he said, "My money has smelled like prayer." Not because the scent changed the numbers, but because the ritual changed the mindset. Tip: avoid synthetic incense sticks. Use raw, untreated wood. Replace yearly. Let the wood absorb, not dominate the field. How to arrange these items. As mentioned before, less is more. Choose 1 to 3 of the above, no more. Wrap each in red or golden cloth, not because of tradition alone, but because these colors anchor fire and earth, creating activation with containment. Lay them with care. Don't stack randomly. Imagine you are tuning a stringed instrument. Each placement is a note. Space them so they can breathe. You are not decorating a museum shelf. You are composing a vibration. Final Feng Shui matching. South sector of your home or safe interior. Place fire-based items here. Gold ingots, red paper, and anything that amplifies visibility or career reputation. Southeast sector. Wood and wealth zone. Ideal for coins, wooden chips, or a combination of metals and organic elements. Northwest sector. Leadership, mentorship. Add the smooth coin or ancestral item here for legacy support. Center, earth. Keep this space light, perhaps just a red cloth or a single note of affirmation. The safe does not transform you, but what you place within it does speak silently, daily, to your unconscious field. You touch money with those hands. You open doors with those beliefs. You give and receive with that resonance. Let it be clean, let it be clear, let it be calm. Final. So now we arrive, not at the end, but at a deeper beginning. Because the question was never just about where to hide your cash. It was always, what are you truly ready to hold? The safe in your home isn't just a metal box. It's a metaphor, a mirror, a quiet corner that reflects your relationship with money, protection, and self-trust. You are not stashing money away. You are shaping a space where wealth is invited to rest without fear. And in that act, you tell the universe, I do not chase abundance, I prepare for it. We've explored how elevation creates dignity, how simplicity invites strength, how red cloth softens fire, and how a single object, whether a coin, a string, or a memory, can hold more power than a pile of paper ever could. Not because of superstition, but because of what it says about the clarity of your heart. A retired monk once told me, I keep only 3 things in my safe: 1 polished coin, 1 folded red string, and 1 sandalwood bead. I don't need money, I need peace. And when peace arrives, the rest follows. That is the essence. Wealth is not what we grasp, it is what we're ready to hold with steadiness, with care, and with respect. So pause, take a breath, look again at your safe, not with anxiety, but with intention. Does it reflect who you are becoming? Does it protect not just your earnings, but your energy? Does it make room for prosperity or for fear? Because wealth is not a number, it is a relationship. And what you choose to store, carefully, calmly, says everything about how ready you are to receive. If this reflection offered you a new way to consider your space, your safe, or your own patterns of containment and flow, I invite you to take a moment. Comment below with the phrase, I store what I'm ready to protect. And if this video touched something quiet inside you, if it gave voice to a feeling you hadn't named, I gently ask, please like, share, and subscribe to New Day Mindfulness. Your support brings me closer to reaching 1,000 subscribers. And more importantly, it helps me continue sharing this kind of quiet wisdom with others who might need it. We don't need more noise. We need more clarity. And sometimes it begins with the smallest gesture, placing one object with care in a space we choose to honor. Thank you for watching.